Hello everyone, thank you for watching this video. In this video we are going to see how we can deploy a Python application into a remote Linux machine using a configuration management tool called pyinfra. Okay. So here we have two important folders. We have the app folder that contains our source code application, and we have the deploy folder that contains our deploy logic that is going to be used by pyinfra in order to deploy our source code or our app into the remote Linux machine. First, let's start our server, check what it does. Okay, this is our server. We're gonna test it. Okay, it's simply a simple hello world with a simple Flask server app with one root that returns the hello world when pinged. Okay, now we are going to deploy our app into a remote Linux machine. What plays the role for us of a remote Linux machine? It's a virtual machine. Okay, here I am using UTM. You can use VirtualBox otherwise to have a virtual Linux machine. I'm starting the VM. Okay, so now we are going to deploy our app. Okay, we went into folder deploy, and I'm gonna execute this command. This command takes two entries, takes an inventory file and operation file. The inventory file just define the groups of hosts of the target machines. And for us, the target machine is still our local host. Since my VM is running on my local host, the IP of my VM, it's the IP of my local host. Okay. And then we have the set of operation that we will execute in order to deploy our app on the VM. Okay, so for these steps, we're gonna just check out what are these. Okay, the first step is we're gonna package our code in an archive. Let's start first, run the command. Okay, I'm asked to provide the Linux password. Okay, and the first step it's just simple shell command run locally in order to generate an archive of our application, like binaries, what we say. Okay, this is what has been generated. Okay, the second step is install the Docker if it is not installed on the remote Linux machine. And, to install Docker, okay, this is this task. pyinfra allows you to have some specific task logic that you can include during your operations. And for example, we are going to check install Docker. Here, basically, we just follow the instruction from the documentation, the official documentation, Docker documentation, to install Docker on an Ubuntu machine. Okay. And next step is install Nginx on the remote machine if it is not installed. Okay. So come back to, okay, it's this step. Okay. So we include this operation. And here it's a little bit different. pyinfra allows you to describe a state and takes the responsibility to match these states. And for here, it's the case. It's like we say, I want the package Nginx to be installed, and pyinfra figure out the steps to match this state. Okay. Just after that, we reload our server Nginx to be sure that everything went well. Okay. Okay. So next step. We're gonna copy and enter the archive that we have generated here into our remote Linux machine. Okay, so this is the copy phase. We are copying from this source file app from here to this destination on the remote machine. Okay, and then the next step, we extract our app. Okay, next step, we are going to build and run the Docker image. Our Docker image. Let's check what there is in the Docker image. Okay, it's simply Python 3.9 image base, and we install Poetry, and we install the dependencies. And we run our app with Gunicorn. The dependencies are defined in pyproject.toml. Okay. And the last step, we copy the Nginx conf from our host to the remote Linux machine. Okay, and for our Nginx conf, this is our Nginx conf. Basically, it just says that listen on port 8000 and redirect the request you receive to port 5000 and in the local host. Okay. So the deploy seems to have went well. So let's test it. Okay, it works. Great. So here it is a request sent from my host to my VM, to the remote Linux machine, and it works. Okay, we are going to test it SSH into the VM and test it also from the VM. Okay, we are going to check if the Docker the container is running. Okay, it is running. Great. So now we are going to curl, but on port 5000. Okay, it works. Great. Just before leaving, I want to put attention on how we SSH to our remote Linux machine. Okay, here we have a special folder recognized by pyinfra, where we define parameters associated or variables associated to our group of hosts. For example, here app servers, pyinfra knows how to associate this variable to this group of hosts. Okay, so this is how pyinfra does his SSH without having to explicitly specify the port, etc. I hope you liked the video. Thank you. Please give it a like and don't hesitate to share it. Bye bye.